everyone knows Ferrari. Doesn't matter who you are or what you know about cars, this old Italian brand has one of the biggest reputations in the business. It's one built on beauty, speed, elegance and exclusivity, channeled into millions of customers and fans with stunning supercars and unrivaled motorsport success. Its DNA is as pure as the driven snow, which is why they've said on many occasions that they will never, ever build an SUV. So here it is, it's called the Purosangue, it's got 4 doors, 4 seats, 4-wheel drive, and it costs from just over £300,000. For some, it'll be sacrilege, for others, their dream car. Question is, has Ferrari's decision to turn to the dark side been vindicated, or is this the ultimate betrayal of the ultimate badge? Now, of course, Ferrari insists that the Purosangue is not, I repeat, not an SUV. But you only have to go to paragraph 3 of the press release before the letters S, U and V are mentioned. So, while Maranello might not want to call this car an SUV, they do at least acknowledge that the genre is part of the reason that it exists. Either way, it's got to be one of the most striking not SUVs out there, as well as delivering aero performance beyond the usual SUV fare. As such, Ferrari's focused on giving the design 2 distinct levels: the more technical lower body with most of the aero, and the imposing upper body that I think shares lines with the GT-C4 Lusso. There's also no conventional front grille, while the headlights are set between 2 pairs of air intakes that meld into the upper part of the flanks. The end result being the front end is dominated by clever blown aero ducts rather than headlights. Meanwhile, the front wheels are aerodynamically sealed to avoid transverse turbulence, thanks to the bumper and louvre creating a powerful air curtain. Other details include aero bridges that link the bonnet and flanks and reduce drag, as well as huge 23-inch rear wheels. To my eyes, the whole car looks spectacular. But what does everyone else think? To find out, I'm going to post a pic of the Purosangue on Car's Instagram account alongside its SUV rivals, put it to the vote, and see what our distinguished followers reckon is the best looking car. Picture posted, we headed south from the snowy Gardena Pass with hopefully drier roads south of Lake Garda entered into the sat-nav. For what it's worth, the Purosangue and its Michelin snow tyres were unstoppable in the snow, and while I could have spent the whole day sliding around the Dolomites, it wouldn't make for a very well-rounded review. However, because this is supposed to be Ferrari's most practical car ever, I can't just do the whole review talking about noise and speed and handling, sadly. I mean, I will get onto that, don't you worry, and I can't believe I'm saying this in a V12 Ferrari review, but I need to take a look at the boot. So here it is, it's the largest boot that Ferrari has ever produced at 473 litres, which is actually smaller than the Lamborghini Urus and also the Aston Martin DBX. But it is electric, so you don't have to open it yourself. It's got folding seats, which can be done on a button here. There's a power point supply in there as well, and a nice little hidden compartment for you to store all your odds and ends. Anyway, there it is, back to the driving. With my thorough examination of the Purosangue's boot complete, we continued our journey south. The weather was getting better and the car was proving as adept at cruising down autostradas and small towns as it was at dancing through the snow. At least it was, until I tried to adjust the sat-nav. Now, I drove the Ferrari 296 GTB and the GTS earlier this year, and they were brilliant. But one thing that really annoyed me was the steering wheel controls. They are touch controls, and they're pretty crucial because they control all the major functions, because you've only got this screen here. There's nothing in the middle, and there's no dial or touch screen there. So you want them to work easily, but they don't. However, for the Purosangue, they've updated them so there's now little indents to make them easier to use. But honestly, it's barely any better. It is still a real faff to use, and it's beyond distracting. The best thing to do is set everything up before you leave, and then just don't touch it for the rest of the journey. Otherwise, you'll have to take your eyes off the road, and it's dangerous. So it's a real shame, because the rest of this cabin is beautiful. This is one of the nicest cabins on sale today, and I reckon that it's probably the nicest contemporary Ferrari cabin, full stop. So the cabin design is inspired by the SF90 Stradale, so you do have that 10.2-inch passenger information display, so they can see pretty much everything that's going on. But that's not new. One of the things that is new though is this rotary dial in the middle here. You just press it and it pops up out of the dashboard, and then press it in again and it goes back in. And it controls things like the heated seats, the massaging seats, the climate control, all of those functions. It's really nice to use, it looks good, and it's not just a gimmick because it does work. So a big fan of that. Another thing that I'm a huge fan of in here are the gear shift paddles. We're not using them much now, just driving around town, but so many cars, even expensive cars, you get shortchanged with the gear shift paddles because they're pretty small and plasticky and rubbish. But in this, it's the total opposite. You are getting your money's worth. They're really big, so you can easily reach them when you're grappling with the wheel. They're made of metal, they've got a lovely action, and they just add to the sense of theatre, which is what you want when you're paying this much money. Also impressive, actually, didn't think I'd be saying this, is the space. I've got loads of room, but also the storage space. It's got big door pockets, got place under the centre armrest, good sized glove box, cup holders, wireless phone charging pad. Never used to be a strong point for Ferraris, as you can appreciate in supercars, but now, yeah, they've learned how to do it very quickly. There's plenty of room in here. So the cabin, aside from the ridiculous steering wheel touch buttons, is pretty spectacular. All you have to do is just sit back in the heated massage seats and cruise along while you listen to that V12 burble. It's really quite relaxed, and in a Ferrari, I think this is quite a novel experience.
It'll be an even more novel experience for those in the back. Rather than be crammed in as an awkward inconvenience, rear seat passengers get lavish individual seats with heating and a full range of adjustment, as well as a double of the trick climate control dial seen in the front. There's rear hinge doors too, yet unlike in the BMW i7, they don't have sensors to stop them opening straight into the nearest bollard, which could be very expensive. Like the touch controls on the wheel, they're not an example of Ferrari's finest work, but as we entered the mountain tunnels on our way back to the overnight stop, everything was forgiven thanks to a howling symphony of V12 wonder.
So the end of a very long first day driving the Purosangue. Started off in heavy snow, which I wasn't sure about, even though it's got all-wheel drive. I wasn't sure about taking a Ferrari up there, but actually it was brilliant in those conditions. Then found out that actually the boot, by Ferrari standards, is very good. It's not quite as big as some of its rivals, but still good. The cabin is exceptional. Really is, apart from the infotainment, and also the cruising, the comfort. That's really impressed me as well. But what I want to find out tomorrow is, in terms of driving it like a Ferrari, does it drive like a four-door supercar, four-door Ferrari, or does it drive like an exceptionally well-sorted SUV as far as it can be? That's the question that I really want to know, because today has been spent doing things that are pushing out of Ferrari's comfort zone. Tomorrow, I want to do the things that you really associate with Ferrari. So that'll be interesting. But for now, a bit more of these. So last night at dinner, Ferrari's chief test driver was explaining a couple of interesting bits about the car, which I want to tell you about. The first is that the suspension is stupidly clever. There's not actually any anti-roll bars. Instead, you've got an electric motor on each shock absorber which spins, and that builds up pressure and keeps the car flat in corners. And I've got to say, it really works. This is not a light car at all. The dry weight is just over 2 tons. So when you start putting people and fuel in it, it's gonna be, what, 2.2 tons? Yet the roll into corners, it's not excessive at all. In fact, it's pretty much exactly where you want it. You want a little bit just so that you know where you stand, and it would feel a bit unnatural otherwise, but it stays remarkably flat. And what's really clever about this suspension is that you don't need to choose between having a comfortable ride and body roll. You can have it in any mode, comfort or sport, or whatever you want, and the ride quality is good, but the body roll is still kept to a minimum. It doesn't start wallowing around just because you've got it in comfort. And when it comes to suspension in big, heavy performance cars, which is the way it's going now, that is a game changer. And actually, Ferrari has said that they've developed it for this car, but it could be applied to anything. It doesn't just have to be in something this heavy and this big. And incidentally, the ride comfort is sublime. The roads out here in Italy are good, but I've driven over some rougher pieces of terrain and the ride has stayed really silky smooth, which is astonishing when you think that the front wheels are 22 inches, the rears are 23. It just irons everything out with so little fuss. There is a little bit of wind noise from the base of the windscreen, A-pillar area, but apart from that, this is a seriously comfortable car. Even when you're going along a road at a reasonable pace like I am now, it's still just absorbing everything. The bumpy road mode button, which Ferraris are known for, has gone on this car. Instead, you can just change the dampers from soft to medium to hard. It's that simple. And also the drive mode selector. Instead of having a race mode, you've now got an ice mode, which obviously is super useful in the conditions that we were driving in yesterday. So you've got ice mode, you've got wet mode, you've got comfort mode, sport, and ESC off. But you're not actually losing out on the race mode, because Ferrari say that the sport mode is sort of between race and CT off, as it would be in other cars in the range. So that kind of makes sense, because it does let you have a little bit of slip, even with the four-wheel drive system doing its thing.
Despite its size and 2-ton plus heft, the Purosangue gets the 49-51 weight distribution that Ferrari's engineers deem optimal for a mid-front engine sports car. The huge engine pushed back away from the front axle. There's also the four-wheel steering from the 812 Competizione, ABS Evo, side slip control 8.0 and an EDIF on the rear axle and torque vectoring on the front.
The result is easily the best SUV to drive if you just want to go point to point, have fun and get there super quickly. This is in a different league to other performance SUVs. I mean, it really is. And actually that brings me on to the other thing that I thought was really interesting, and what I was told about this car from Ferrari's chief test driver, is that over an unfamiliar road where you don't know what the surface is going to be like or the conditions, he reckons that this would be the quickest of all Ferraris currently on sale. And yeah, you might think that sounds obvious because this has got four-wheel drive, it's that bit more secure, but Ferrari makes some stupidly quick cars. So for this to be quicker than all of them over a regular road, that's quite noteworthy.
The four-wheel drive system may be incredibly complicated with its mini transmission for the front wheels and 8-speed DCT for the rear, but it's perfectly balanced to give ample traction and, more importantly, fun. There's no option to lock it in rear-wheel drive like you get with an AMG, but in truth, it doesn't need it. The drivetrain can, if it needs to, send 100% of the power to just one of the rear wheels. Big angles are therefore little effort, especially when you've got 715 brake horsepower on tap.
And remember, that's 715 brake horsepower and 528 pounds-foot of torque with no turbo. It's just 6.5 litres of pure Italian V12 joy. It revs to over 8,000 RPM. Peak power is only a few hundred RPM below that, so you can really wring it out in every gear. 0 to 62 miles an hour, 3.3 seconds in a car that weighs this much. 0 to 124 miles an hour takes 10.6. It is properly quick, not just quick for an SUV, it is quick in any car's book. And also, I know I mentioned it before and you heard it before, but when it sounds like this, you can't have too much of it. Ooh, listen to that. Those down changes, wow. And if you're wondering how it compares to the 812's V12, then it doesn't quite rev as fast. It's not crescendoing as much at the top end because there's a more linear spread of torque, which of course you need in an SUV like this. The torque is available from lower down, and it's got a deeper kind of growl to it. It's less of a shriek. But does that make it any worse? No, I think it just proves how flexible this engine can be, that it can work in an SUV, and it can also work in one of Ferrari's halo supercars. You don't need turbos, you don't need hybrid. This is unquestionably more than enough.
After several hundred miles in the Purosangue, my time with it was nearly at an end. For those wondering, it won the Instagram beauty test comprehensively, and for me it's clear that as a performance SUV, it's in another league. Nothing really comes close to what it offers. But is it a proper sports car, and more importantly, is it a proper Ferrari?
I think from a performance point of view, this is up there with Ferrari's lower down sports cars, but it's not without compromises because of course the centre of gravity is higher, it's very heavy, it's not rear wheel drive, and even by Ferrari standards this is very, very complex. So it takes away some of the crispness and some of the purity, if I can say that. But I think focusing on whether this can deliver what a sports car, a Ferrari sports car can, is sort of missing the point of what this car does so well.
The Purosangue's real talent lies in how it combines multiple luxury cars into one. It has the ride and cosseting comfort of a Grand Tourer. The cabin is brilliantly exclusive, the engine is from a hypercar, and the boot is bigger than a VW Golf's. No other car on sale today offers this kind of heroically complicated yet surprisingly succinct combination. In other words, it's very unique. And if you're still wondering whether that makes it a proper Ferrari, and hopefully that answers your question.